Cool. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to today's press conference on the first court date for the New Britain 3. So on Thursday, July 31st, Dare to Struggle Connecticut held an impromptu protest after getting kicked out of the Assembly Room restaurant in New Britain for bringing in homeless activists. The Assembly Room called the police on us 2 times, but the cops left each time without arresting anyone. On Tuesday, August 5th, hours prior to our next planned protest, Detective Ty Tran of the New Britain Police Department drew up arrest warrants for 3 Dare to Struggle activists. Judge Chris Pelosi of the New Britain Superior Court signed each warrant. New Britain Police then came to the homes of 2 of our members and arrested each person. This happened right before our plans to protest the National Night Out event celebrating the police and their supposed good deeds. The following day, a 3rd person turned himself in after we learned there was a warrant out for his arrest. All 3 Dare to Struggle activists face charges of 2nd-degree breach of peace. New Britain Police has made several blatant mistakes along the way. When one of the 3 arrested at her home pressed officers for a warrant, they refused to produce one. When we finally got our hands on documentation, the arrest warrant applications indicated the police were targeting Dare to Struggle for legal First Amendment activity, are using a falsified statement from another property manager as evidence, and they have surveilled our activities long before they arrested the 3 of us. Reading from the warrant, members of the New Britain Police Department's Intel Unit are familiar with the group called Dare to Struggle Connecticut. The group aims to protest for the homeless population of New Britain through rallies, protests, and pamphlets. To be clear, we hate how the police treat the poor and oppressed of New Britain, whether it's cruel targeting and harassment of homeless people or senseless police murders that go unpunished. When they were questioning the activists separately, New Britain Police tipped their hand to the real reason for the arrests. Detectives asked about our plans to protest the National Night Out, which they tried to include as throwaway questions, despite detectives tying their incomplete warrants and charges to events at the Assembly Room on July 31st. NBPD drew up arrest warrants under false pretenses, staked out one of their homes with unmarked cars, pulled another out of their home without a warrant, and put us through questioning, all to prevent Dare to Struggle from protesting the National Night Out and to prevent us from protesting more injustices around Connecticut. We are protesting the National Night Out because in New Britain, the cops who killed Catherine Colon and Zoe Dowdell are still employed or have not faced consequences or criminal charges. We have posted plans to protest because in New Britain, homeless people are mistreated and harassed daily by these cops. New Britain Police is using these arrests to intimidate us and suppress free speech. If we allow New Britain Police to use absurd charges to stop us from protesting, they and other police departments will remain emboldened to target any activist group when we step out of line from what they deem acceptable. We call on churches, community groups, activists, and organizations fighting injustice across Connecticut to publicly speak out about New Britain Police harassment. We cannot tolerate this. Dare to Struggle has fought and won against political repression before. In October of 2024, 15 people were arrested in New York City on the National Day of Protest against police brutality. A few of us refused to take plea deals, choosing instead to take a collective stand against vicious and militarized police assaults of protest. We must recognize and act upon how critical it is to meet this moment. People we join with in the struggle against their oppressors face a constant and very real fear of repression and retaliation if they choose to fight back. It is our collective responsibility to provide examples of how to fight back and win, drawing courage and audacity from each other instead of retreating or taking deals. So we're calling on anyone outraged by this for your support. Donate to our GoFundMe campaign to help cover legal expenses. Share this story with your friends and neighbors. The more media attention, the more likely these charges get dropped. Hit us up to present our experiences to your classroom, clergy, or community group, and publicly condemn New Britain Police with us for violating constitutional First Amendment rights with your own statement, signing onto our letter, and speaking at our events. Today we're here to support Kimmy, Lily, and Jesse and demand their charges be dropped. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to invite anyone who has arrived to stand with us up here because we want to show on video that we have the support, that we have people, that are with us. So now I'd like to introduce the lawyers for this case. So I don't know who wants to go first. John?
Sure. Hi, my name is John Schoenhorn. I'm a Hartford lawyer. I've been active in the National Lawyers Guild and a criminal defense lawyer and civil rights lawyer for about, over 40 years here. I have read the warrants that were issued in this case, although this is the first court appearance, and my initial analysis of those warrants suggests that the purpose of the arrest was to infringe on the First Amendment rights of Kimmy, Jesse, and Lily. We will at some point be filing in each of those cases, a motion to dismiss. There will be hearings at some point on that. Again, we have today requested that the police body cam video, 911 calls if there are any, and police radio communications between the officers be produced. A formal request had been made before today, and they were at least examined today, and we were told that by the next court date on December 3rd, we will have those materials. Again, it appears that these arrests were in violation of the First Amendment. It appears the use of the breach of peace statute against peaceful protesters is itself an infringement of free speech and the right to demonstrate, and we will be pursuing that in that fashion.
Good morning. My name is Alex Taubes. I'm a civil rights lawyer in New Haven. I practice throughout the state of Connecticut. I'm very proud to be working with John as a colleague for the first time. Thank you, Dare to Struggle, for bringing us together in this very important case. When I read the arrest warrant issued against members of Dare to Struggle, I immediately believe that what's happening in New Britain right now is unconstitutional, plain and simple. The warrant charges 3 people with breach of the peace in the second degree, essentially for raising their voices at a protest about discrimination against homeless individuals. This affidavit contains no allegations of any violence, no allegations of any threats by Dare to Struggle, no allegations of any incitement to threats or provocation of fighting, just speech. Loud speech, angry speech, and for some profanity. Yes, indeed. But that is the point of a protest. Under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the F word is protected speech. Our courts have said so over and over again. Most recently in 2017, the Connecticut Supreme Court in State against Bacala threw out a conviction for breach of the peace in the second degree for far worse language than what is described in the warrant of the Dare to Struggle protesters. Because profanity and insults without any threat, without any violence or fighting, are not crimes. The Supreme Court said that it's okay to say, "Fuck the draft" on your jacket in the case of Cohen against California. And in many cases since, our rights to protest have been upheld. But here we are, in 2025, with a Connecticut Police Department that itself has excused or minimized the murderous actions of its own officers, charging people with crimes for shouting "F the system." That is not a breach of peace. That is political repression. The warrant itself proves this. This warrant should be withdrawn immediately by New Britain State's Attorney Christian Watson. And if the City of New Britain and the State's Attorney's Office continues to insist on prosecuting people merely for their words, John and I will fight this in court, and we will win, because the law is clear, the Constitution is clear, and the right of the people to speak truth to power does not depend on being polite. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was great. All right, I'd like to invite up the people who were arrested next. So, Kimmy, do you want to start us off?
So, back on August 5th, I was at my house, I was home alone, and I was working from home, and I responded to the doorbell, and there outside were two plainclothes New Britain pigs who had crawled out of whatever hole they came from 3 towns over to my house to tell me that they had a warrant out for my arrest. They explained that it was for a protest that we had held outside of the assembly room right there in downtown. And we were protesting because that place discriminates against homeless people. But interestingly, that protest had occurred 5 days prior, and here these pigs were 5 days later at my house to arrest me. So when they told me that, I said, I want to get my phone to record this interaction. And before I could even turn around, they grabbed me by my arm, yanked me out of my front door, out of my house, and put me in handcuffs on my front stoop. I said that I wanted to see a warrant. They did not produce one. They said, oh, we don't carry those around in case we lose them. So I said to them, I'm really just going off of your word then that you're who you say you are and you're not two randos here to like kidnap me. And they basically shrugged it off. And they called over my local town's police to bring over a cruiser to contain me in until a New Britain police cruiser could come and bring me to the station here. They didn't even let me go back into my house to put shoes on, so I went to jail in my bare feet. And after they booked me, the detective read me my Miranda rights and tried to question me and asked me, do you know that tonight is the National Night Out? And we found that piece of the puzzle particularly interesting because we had posted to our social media our intent to protest the National Night Out that night. And what the National Night Out is where the local police departments come together and basically have a cookout where they celebrate themselves. And so our intent was to go to this celebration and remind people that the New Britain police do not deserve to celebrate. They murdered Catherine Colon, a mother, in two years ago, right on West Main Street. And they also killed a 20-year-old black man named Zoe Dowdell in 2017. And so, the New Britain pigs, they don't deserve to celebrate. And we were going to show up to remind people that because at the time of the National Night Out, to our knowledge, the best of our knowledge, all the officers involved in those murders were still employed by the New Britain police. At this point, Connor Reinsch, the pig who murdered Catherine Colon, he has since fled to go work at Middletown as a police officer. So good riddance to the city of New Britain, but that murderer is a danger to the public and really shouldn't be employed anywhere. We believe that we were arrested on August 5th to prevent us from protesting the National Night Out. And we believe that we were being repressed. And this pattern of political repression is something that we're noticing nationwide. Here in Connecticut, with our cases, and also we've been reading in the newspapers about Catherine Hines, another protester who has been harassed by the police, arrested at least 12 times, or at least twice at this point, for also protesting on public sidewalks. And it's happening nationally too. And we hear people say that they think that it's associated with the current administration that we're under, the Trump administration. But repression of protests has been going on a lot longer under all different administrations. So if we think back to recent examples like the pro-Palestine student encampments that were brutally repressed by police, the protesters at the DNC in Chicago who were speaking out against the genocide in Gaza, and also the protesters against Cop City. So the right to protest is something that needs to be defended no matter who is in political office. And so that's what we're here to do today. And it's really important that we do that because when we're out here in downtown New Britain, throughout New Britain, across Connecticut, talking to people on the streets week over week, one of the main things that we hear from people that's stopping them from joining up with us in this fight against oppression in all its forms is the fear of repression. And they're afraid of repression, whether it's from the police or even from homeless shelter directors who retaliate against homeless people for speaking out against the mistreatment, abuse, and horrible conditions that they experience in the shelters, in the very places that are supposed to be helping them. And so it's really, really, really important that we come together collectively and show that there's a way to fight this and come out on top and win. We need to be able to be that example to encourage people that, yes, if you enter into the fold with us, there are risks, but we have figured out a way how to fight that head on collectively and win. Because when you dare to struggle, you dare to win. Thank you.
All right. First of all, thanks for coming out, everybody. I know it's early and cold. I was arrested on August 5th for protesting against the oppression of homeless people 5 days prior. Cops showed up to my house to serve a warrant. For an hour, 2 unmarked police vehicles surveilled me. They staked out my house and arrested me when I left. Again, this was all over a breach of peace charge for protesting the week prior. And it bears repeating, it is no coincidence that they arrested us just before the police's own National Night Out Cop Celebration event, which we had announced plans to protest. The arrest warrants alone, which were signed by a judge that same day, shouldn't have even been issued in the first place. There is no good case against us, but they are putting us through the system anyway. I'd go so far as to say that New Britain Superior Court Judge Chris Pelosi misused his power by signing the warrants purely based on protected free speech and political activity. So these warrants cite events of July 31st. We were kicked out of the assembly room food hall for daring to enter the building with homeless people. Just blatant, shameless discrimination against homeless people. They kicked us out, they called the cops, and we were immediately protesting outside of the assembly room. So then, despite officers being there to kick us out and issue trespass orders, they left as we protested on the sidewalk. Then, as we continued protesting, the warrant itself admits that when officers were, quote, recalled to the location, no disturbance was located. So they admit there was no disturbance when they arrived a second time, with 2 separate instances of several officers breathing down our necks, talking to witnesses, gathering testimony. They still found no excuse to arrest us. So, we are here today to defend our right to protest. We are here today to fight and not back down. Let us take this moment to expose the system, to recognize that they aim to repress anyone who disrupts routine protests, but to also recognize that this system stands no chance when outnumbered by the scrutiny and the will of the people. We will set the precedent against repression here in this courtroom. We will set this precedent on December 3rd at our next court date, and we will set the precedent in the streets as we continue to fight back.
Kimmy. Lindsay just called. Can you call him back? I can't pick up. Thanks.
Hi everybody, or good morning everybody. My name is Jesse Matthews. I was one of the people arrested on August 5th for protesting on July 31st. The supposed owner of the assembly room kicked us out and called the cops on us. He said that homeless people are not allowed in there because they smell bad. As somebody who was formerly homeless and knows people who are currently homeless, I can say that this isn't the first time they've treated people this way. People are refused bathroom access and not allowed in the establishment to simply cool off or warm up. The assembly room and other businesses downtown deny entry, discriminate against people just because they look homeless. This is all part of what is called gentrification. The city, along with businesses, police, and shelter system, are kicking the homeless out of the downtown area, just to attract upscale businesses and the upper class. And by doing this, they are making life a living hell for the homeless. There's nowhere for people to go. You're spending your whole day getting kicked from one place to another. There isn't any public restrooms at all, and barely any help for the homeless in general. When the city's not listening and they're not being sympathetic to the homeless, we're left with no other option but to protest and stand up for what we need. This is our First Amendment right. This is why I say that these charges must be dropped or dismissed. We will not back down. Yeah! Let's go!
All right, thank you so much. So I believe we have someone from the Civil Liberties Defense Committee who's going to say a few words in support.
So, hi, my name is Rhett. So, coming from a red state and being a Connecticut transplant, I had the naive notion that being in New England meant I was going to be in a liberal haven of some sort. But the reality is I'm in the same state. I'm in another state that's just more of the same. More cowardly legislators, more cowardly cops, more cowardly judges, constantly talking out of both sides of their mouth about the rights of people who live here. I'm watching multiple cities police their black and homeless citizens the same way Pete Buttigieg did in South Bend, my home state, giving the same platitudes I have to watch Lamont and Murphy and Blumenthal give every time they go on record. We have neoliberal businesses who just can't be bothered to show common decency, just like back home. Kick you out if you look wrong, because it might ruin the dining experience of others. We have a racial profiling problem that just results in death just the same as in South Bend. Chris Pelosi, and by extension the court system under Lamont, have decided to take the same approach that the Trump administration has taken to free speech. And when I say the Trump administration, it's really every administration prior. This is not just the Trump administration. This is the Biden administration during Palestine protesting and the homeless protesting. During Black Lives Matter, going even further back to the Vietnam War. This is what police repression has looked like in the history of our nation, and we're just continuing that. There's been no effort to deny that in any future administration and in the state of Connecticut. They're happy to use this case as a scapegoat in a test run for policing of this type of the norm and using social media for this type of surveillance. The free speech we get to experience is a free speech that only applies if you say the things they want you to say and if you uphold the status quo. But if you dare speak out about the mistreatment we receive and on behalf of others, there are consequences derived from rules that change to fit their punishments. People advocating for the most vulnerable in our society are considered dangerous under these rules, while their own membership murders. And the protest they were prevented from attending is a targeted move to make sure the rest of us stay unaware of the killings their colleagues get to carry out. To simply be able to speak power to this can get the public to turn their opinions against the oppressor's actions, which is why they're so dead set on silencing the DTS members today. I'm so tired of politicians who time and time again say they are on our side while funding prisons and voting in Congress against the constituency at every turn. We are seeing here what we see everywhere in the US, a complete unwillingness to protect the people that live here. They would rather sweep homeless camps and further destroy livelihoods of those who already have nowhere to go. They've decided that surveillance of the New Britain 3 is what your tax dollars will be spent on, instead of the care that could be helping the homeless and to help get your health care, to help your basic needs in the society. Your civil liberties include the right to speak and the right to defend people around you. Speaking out on behalf of the homeless being mistreated is far from what I would call radical, and instead I challenge you to think of it as a bare minimum of humanity to be helping others when they are in need. And wanting a state that helps others is not radical. It is simply human. And to have a legislature and judicial system that thinks this is an appropriate response to exercising First Amendment rights for the benefit of others is simply inhumane. Civil Liberties Defense Committee of Connecticut joins Dare to Struggle in demanding the charges for the New Britain 3 to be dropped, to stop the repression of free speech, for the police to disclose their surveillance practices and what data they're collecting about DTS and all of us, and to end this data collection from taking place, to hold accountable businesses and government bodies that demonize the homeless in Connecticut and criminalize them simply existing and trying to improve their lives, and to charge the officers who killed Catherine Colon and Zoe Dodell. Zoe Dodell. And on those cases, we join DTS in their struggle, and we dare to struggle with them as civil liberties around us are undermined every day. And we need to rise up with them and help them so that we can help everyone in the state.
All right, thank you everybody for coming here today. So just to close it out, to New Britain Police, to the owner of the assembly room who called the cops on us, we're going to expose what you're doing to us and keep exposing the brutality you put homeless and other oppressed people through in New Britain. We're gonna fight these charges until they are dropped, and we're going to put you on blast in the media like we've already been doing. We are choosing to expose and fight these charges because police shouldn't get away with repressing activists and people who speak out against injustice. We're also encouraging people here to come out to our next action on October 22nd, the National Day of Protest to stop police brutality. Over a dozen cities across the US and all of our chapters will be holding demonstrations on this day to honor the legacy of the 022 movement. It is a day to remember the lives stolen by police and to condemn the pigs that are responsible. In Connecticut, our chapter will be hosting this protest right over there at Central Park at 6 p.m. Wednesday, October 22nd. If you have lost someone to police violence or have been impacted by police brutality and want to do something about it, please reach out to us. Please talk to us after this. And to end us off, I want to do two chants. So the first one goes, and y'all can repeat after me. NBPD's out of line.
NBPD's out of line.
Protesting is not a crime.
Protesting is not a crime.
NBPD's out of line.
NBPD's out of line.
Protesting is not a crime.
Protesting is not a crime.
All right, and we're gonna do one more. This one goes, stop displacement, no more greed.
Stop displacement, no more greed.
Give the people what they need.
Give the people what they need.
Stop displacement, no more greed.
Stop displacement, no more greed.
Give the people what they need.
Give the people what they need.
All right, thanks so much, y'all, for coming out. Please, if you took any videos or photos today, share them with us. Send them to our accounts on Instagram and Facebook. Our Instagram is at dts.ct. Our Facebook is just Dare to Struggle CT. Yeah, you know, spread the word about this because we want to keep this alive as much as we can in the media because they want us to just take plea charges and let this go away. So thank you so much for coming out. And yeah, talk with us after. Thank you.